And in this video, I asked Michelle for her advice for any leader who is or has just started their own business. Watch out for her reference to the ST exit model, and she outlines or gives a list of 5 types of typical buyers, and of course, why your why is just so important. Obviously, you see, founders and leaders within all of these businesses, and this podcast focuses a lot on leaders and leadership, and you're going to see good leaders and bad leaders. And we talked a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, where you talked about that some of those leaders that you see are control freaks. They don't hire for their own weaknesses. They're too emotionally tied. Mm-hmm. But if someone was about to start with great passion their own business, what kind of advice would you give them from a leadership perspective, just so they could perhaps get things in place and start as they mean to go on?
Okay, well, 2 big things. Number one is, because I think leaders have to have a plan, right?
Yep.
And most leaders are the visionary. They're not the integrators, they're the visionary. So leaders have to focus on their strengths, hire their weaknesses, not get stuck in the day-to-day, figure out what your core competencies are and work on the business, not in the business. And I want to tell you before we get into the 6 Ps, how you should start your in from the beginning. Okay. Is that okay to talk about that?
Yeah.
And that's called the ST exit model. So from the moment at starting or buying your business, you need to have an end game in mind. When you want to drive somewhere in London, what's the first thing you do if you've never been there before?
I want to know where I'm going, right?
You pull out your Google map and you plug in your destination.
Yep.
Right? So that's the problem with business owners. They don't have a destination. So they drive around in circles up and down the financial hills, ending up nowhere. Right. So you need to know where you're going. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. So number one, you need a destination, your end game, your desired sales price. And I always tell my clients, Adam, just pick a number. If you want to sell for 20 million, great, that's a number. And leaders, entrepreneurs get hung up on a number. Don't get hung up on a number. Just pick a number. It doesn't matter. You might hit it, you might not. Right. So let's say you want to sell for $20 million. Then the next thing the GPS exit model needs to know is your location, your current location. Where are you starting from? Or in other words, what is your business worth today, your valuation? And I don't know if you know this, but most business owners never even get a valuation on their business. I met with a guy who's been in business 50 years. He's never had his company evaluated. We go to the doctor once a year to get a physical checkup to make sure our heart's still ticking and we're still kicking. We drive a car to the shop to get an annual checkup, but we never get an annual business valuation checkup. It is financial suicide. Wow. There are events that increase your valuation and events to decrease your valuation. Like this pandemic is decreasing your valuation for a lot of industries. So you must know what your business is worth on a year-to-year basis. So let's say you're worth $3 million or $5 million. Let's say you're worth $5 million. You want to sell for $20 million. Now you need to know time frame. You're not going to do it in a year. Let's say 10 years. Now, what do you need to know? You need to know, well, who's your buyer is going to be. You're going to have to reverse engineer to sell a $20 million business. So who's your buyer is going to be? There's 5 types of buyers.
Okay.
So I'll tell you who your buyers are not going to be. It's not going to be a first-time buyer because they buy small businesses. Turnaround specialists, second type of buyer, they buy distressed assets. Mm-hmm. Third type of buyer is private equity groups. These are PEGs. They buy based upon platform and add-ons. You have to have an EBITDA of at least over $1 million for them to even consider your company for sale.
Right.
And then you got strategic competitors. Sometimes they pay the highest value, the highest multiple because they're buying synergies.
Right.
And then you got your sophisticated serial entrepreneur that is industry agnostic and just chases EBITDA, chases cash flow. And so then what you need to know is, well, where do the financials have to be for me to sell a business for $20 million? Where's the top line need to be? Where's profit margins? Most importantly, the EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Where do those numbers need to be? So to sell for $5 million, you need to have at least $3 million to $5 million in EBITDA.
Yeah.
And then you need to know, well, what characteristics are they looking for? What synergies are they looking for? What will make a buyer pay more for my business? And then the most important thing is to know your why. Everybody has to have a why. It's got to be the why, because at the end of the day, if it was easy to sell a $20 million company, everybody would be doing it. So you got to have a strong enough why to keep you in the game, to keep you motivated, to keep you weathering all the financial storms. And then what you do is now that you know your numbers, now that you have your plan, because, business owners don't fail to plan, they plan to fail. And now you can build your business based upon the 6 Ps to meet those buyer specific criteria.